What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Uncomfortable Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Allen, and with me today is the legend, Mr. Cory Camp. I'll let Cory introduce himself in just a second, but Cory, how you doing, brother?
Jake, man, I'm great, and it feels so cool to. I think we first met on a podcast set like two years ago at CJ's place, so it's cool to come full circle, see you finding your groove too, and hosting, and I'm just stoked to be here and jam out with you.
Dude, I'm stoked to dive into this conversation. Why don't you dive a little more into, intro yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Who is Cory Camp?
Yeah, that's a great question. My background right now. Actually, I just changed it today. It's this like trippy. Do you know who you are? Little graphic. I love it. Who am I? I am a conscious connector, creator. I love bringing people together and just curating experiences, and I love using alliteration. Hence, Cory Camp and all the C words that I just threw at you there. That shows up in a ton of different ways in my life. I founded this company, Forever Athlete. A lot of that came out of my mental health struggles and journey post athletics in college, trying to figure out that exact question. Who am I? What do I do? And what value do I bring to this world beyond being a fast swimmer? I realized very quickly that most people didn't really care that I could get from one end of the pool to the other end of the pool 66 times really, really fast. I was like, okay, so what do I do? And I founded Forever Athlete to really bring people together that were like me, that were also struggling to answer that question, find that North Star, that purpose, that passion that lit them up post sport or post whatever major chapter was their life, whatever made a big impact on them. And I do that through, we got a book that just came out. I've hosted this podcast for going on almost 3 years, which is pretty crazy. Forever Athlete Radio is rolling at this point in time. And then I do these community events, and we're just taking it one day at a time. But it's so cool to see this thing that was just an idea. It was something that I wish that I had when swimming ended, to really now be this like actual tangible thing. And more people are buying into it rather than just myself, which is always a good sign as an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, dude. Well, I have the book right here.
Me too.
Let's go. We'll dive more into that in a minute, but let's just work through that. And so your background in swimming, you grew up swimming. How did you even get into swimming in the first place?
It's actually one of my favorite stories, my origin story. So my dad swam in college, and naturally you hear that and you think, oh, well, that was the natural progression, right? Like Cory, of course, was going to become a swimmer. Well, my mom, very, very thankful for her because she was like, nah, let's let him get into it on his own timeline. Like, let's not force it on him. Like, we don't want him to just be you, aka my dad. Um, I was like 4 years old, so I was like, all right, cool. I don't have to go swim. Great. But I was always a really curious kid. So my dad was a swim coach and still is to this day. And he was coaching this team back home for me. And this is back like pre-sign-ups where you can just hop on a website and click, you register for the team. Like we're talking, you got to go. You got to sign up on paper. You write down your email, your suit sizing. This typically happened a week before Memorial Day. So actually right around this time of year. And we're there. I'm 4 years old. My dad is taking all the signups and he just says, Cory, go play. Like go spend time. AKA stop bugging me and I'll be here doing signups. If you need anything, just shout. Come get me. It's like, all right, cool. And so I'm wandering around the pool deck and I've gotten bored of the playground. And I noticed there's this really cool, long, shiny pole that's hanging out of the deep end of the well. I said, yeah, that looks like a really fun thing to climb. I didn't know that it was a pool vacuum. And for those of you not familiar with a pool vacuum, on the bottom, there's this attachment that has wheels on it meant to go back and forth and clean the bottom of the pool. Well, when I decided to start climbing this pole, those wheels moved. And next thing I knew, I was slowly starting to sink, aka start to drown in about 13 feet of water. No idea how to swim. It was pretty scary. And I let out my shout and said to Dad, I need help. Sure enough, he dives in, swims the whole length of the pool, fully clothed, takes me out, rescues me, and the funny part about that story is I don't remember any of that. Like that's all just recollection from people telling me that were there what happened. My memory of that was standing at McDonald's afterwards, which something has to be up if my dad takes me to McDonald's because he's like a health nut. Never in a million years would he choose to go there. But that was the one thing that I guess I wanted it for. I just remember standing there in line wearing my dad's like extra sweatshirt from the back of the car, and he's just like shivering because he's so miserable. His clothes are soaked. And I'm just like, I'm pretty warm in his extra hoodie, and like we're about to go get some food. This great Saturday, if you ask me. That was the tipping point for my mom to finally buy in to, oh yeah, we might not have to like push him into swimming per se, but we should probably get him swim lessons to at least learn and be water safe. So the following week, started swim lessons, and I fell in love with the water. Thankfully, I had no lasting fear of this unknown. It was just, it became my happy place. I wasn't good at it for a while, but I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the freedom and the break that it gave me. This ability to, your body just feels so, to me anyway, it just feels so cool when it's in water because it's like you turn off gravity for a second and it can do all these unique things that you can't do on land. And I found a lot of peace in that. I just started to, I stuck with it over the years, honestly, but that's how I found it.
That's crazy, dude. That's crazy that you literally got into it by almost dying. Like
Yeah, it's
literally, I mean, how many people would that turn off to? How many people would, do that and never want to get in the water again? Like, I mean, granted, I guess you're four, maybe you didn't even have any idea what was happening, but that's insane.
Yeah,
um,
I don't think I fully processed, and I'm grateful that I didn't fully process the
right,
extent and
exactly.
severity of that. You know what I mean? Looking back at it.
How did you like where was the transition from like just learning to swim to actually making it like to the competitive side of things?
Yeah. So the way swimming worked in the area that I grew up in, everyone gets started in summer league swimming. That's where my dad primarily coached, but he also coached an age group team, which was a year-round program. Um, and I'd say after seven, the summer that I was seven, I was like, cool, this was fun. I want to get a little bit better. It I was enjoying it, but I didn't want to be like the third, fourth, or fifth fastest guy on my team. I wanted to be like the fastest one. So the natural progression was like, okay, let's try age group year round swimming. And I went there, and again, like started very small, and I think the irony was my dad taught the advanced level eight and unders at that time of that age group team, but I was very far from meeting the requirements in that category. So I would go to the pool with my dad, and it was almost like he went to work and I went to work. Like he went to work on his side of the pool, and then I joined the slow kids. And I was like, I really want to be with my dad because I would hear all these cool stories of all these other kids that were in his group that just seemed awesome. Turns out, like most of them are still really good friends of mine to this day. So that inspired me to start really working my butt off to get over to his side of the pool. I finally did, and then there were so many instances where I would say that would be a breakthrough moment, and then I would like regress. Like the summer from, I guess I was eight or just turned nine and was going into the summer, and I got an invite to the next level up at the age group team, and I had to go try out for a week of practices, see how I do. And while I was there, it was actually pretty comical. I had a cousin visiting from out of town, and even though I knew the severity of this tryout, basically if I didn't do well during this week, like I didn't get a spot there, and I had to leave my friends who all went there and join another training group, which was a little bit lower skilled. And because my cousin was in town, I literally like botched the tryout. I threw it away. I just cried in the bathroom. I was like, no, I don't want to be here. I want to be with Tristan. I want to hang out with Tristan. It's hilarious looking back on it. And I look now, knowing what I know, I was like, I emotionally was not ready for that kind of commitment because we're talking even at 9 years old, you're starting to practice every single day, and you're starting to have an hour and a half to 2 hour practice. And it was a lot. And I wasn't ready to make those sort of sacrifices. So I was grateful that, that didn't work out. Came back in the fall after about 2 weeks. I had one practice in that lower skilled group, and I just sprinted the entire practice. I don't know. I don't care what this does to me. If it kills me, I'm going to prove that like I don't belong here and I belong to be with my friends. I'd say that was another breakthrough moment for me, where then they moved me up, and I just slowly started to progress over time from there.
Yeah. In your book, you talk about how your last swim, your final, um, last hurrah. As athletes, you expect you expect to go out with a bang. You want to win the championship. You want to take home the gold and, ride off into the sunset in a blaze of glory. But you explained in your book how that wasn't quite your reality. What, how did that work out? Break that down
Oof.
a little bit.
Yeah, that was like the furthest thing from my reality. It was a challenge. It was a really big mental hurdle. So I mean, I look at that moment, and honestly, I had for all the adversity and the challenges that I faced going into later years of high school and getting into college and dealing with a whole bunch of different things. In college swimming up until that point, it felt like I had the Midas touch of I could really do no wrong. Like there was a 2 year period, which is very rare for any athlete, where every time I touched the water, it was the best time. And it wasn't just a best time by like a little bit. It was like, oh, Cory just dropped 10 seconds. Like, what did he do? What is happening? And it was just I had found my sweet spot, and I found a groove and a flow, and things were rolling until they weren't. And unfortunately, that magical period ended my it came started slowing down my junior year, and then it came to like a crash and burn halt my senior year for a combination of a whole variety of reasons. And it took me forever to actually take ownership of that season myself, because for the longest time I would say, well, it wasn't my fault. It was the coach, it was the training wasn't, what it was in the past couple of years. It was everything else. But really, it was me. And there was that harsh reality that came crashing down on my head when I touched the wall for the last time. And it was the slowest I had been in that particular race, the mile, in 6 years. And it was like, oh, there is no next chapter. There is no next competition, next meet. It was always, well, like if I had a bad swim, it was, oh, just worry about the next one, and that will get you out of it. And finally, I was met with, there is no next one. I have to sit with this. And it sent me down a pretty dark place of I was trying to figure out, what do I do now without swimming? The original career path that I had was physical therapy school. 2 weeks after finishing my swimming career, I heard back from every PT school that I applied for saying, sorry, dude, like you needed better grades. I was like, well, didn't you see? Like I was a great swimmer. Let's have an interview and I can tell you about all the skills that I'll bring to the table. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to hear it. You had a 2.9 GPA. Like, sorry, dude, that's just not good enough for grad school. And I was like, whoa, okay. Um, so it just felt like at that point in time, everything was being just tossed on me, and I just it felt like I couldn't seem to win. Um, and just I talk about it in the book as well. When your expectations differ from your reality, that's where like unhappiness really settles in. And if it the further that may be, um, it can send you into a depression. It can send you into just a really dark place. And that was pretty much what was happening to me. Was I had such high expectations of myself, because up until that point things flowed and they were easy, and now for the first time in a very long time I was really struggling, and I didn't know where to turn to get answers and solutions there. So it showed up in a lot of other stuff like alcohol and substance abuse, and not really facing my problems, not taking ownership, passing blame off to other people. And after a few years, man, I just got tired of that. I was like, I'm gonna face this, and it might hurt, but I know if I step into it, it will at least it will allow me to play and feel what I need to feel and learn from it, rather than let it be this compounding, prolonged thing that just continues to snowball and show up in every time I try to like start a new relationship or start a new job or whatever it may be. And that was exactly what I found I needed to do. And that's
Mm.
why we're here now.
How do you like, what were some of the steps you took to start taking ownership
Mm.
over your life?
I think a lot of it was one of the most helpful exercises I did was writing out my story from my point of view, and then asking some other people in my life that I valued their opinion and just trusted them to read it and say, am I wrong for thinking of it this way? And this is where the value of having really good quality people around you comes in. Because I had people that were willing to challenge my experience, not put it down and not discredit it, but challenge it and say, is it really that way? Or could you potentially see it another way? And I was like, huh, yeah, you might be right. And that was really helpful. I went to therapy for a while as well, where we really worked through struggled a lot with perfectionism and holding myself to that such high standard. Because for as long as I could remember, in conjunction with my swimming identity, right, and this identity as an athlete, I mean, it started off in. I mean, by the time I was in fifth grade, everyone at school knew me as Cory Camp the swimmer. Everyone that I met always asked me like, "So, are you going to the Olympics?" Or like, do you look up to Michael Phelps? Like, how has he impacted your life? I'm like, yeah, like he's a great role model. But and from that moment on, it was like I had everything set out. It just made sense that I would then go to Division 1 and get a scholarship and make this, and, qualify for nationals. And there was always another thing. So when that other thing didn't exist anymore, I really was just in the dark. So going to therapy really helped kind of reset my compass and really talk through a lot of what I was dealing with, this external pressure that was causing me anxiety in the sense of I need to show Jake that I have it figured out, or I need to show whoever's in my life around me that I'm speaking to that I got all the answers. And now I find so much joy, and um, I can just play freer, and I'm happier actually every single day because I'm willing to admit to total strangers that I don't have the answer. I don't have it figured out. I'm just playing, and I'm trying things out. And I'm curious and I'm experimenting, and some things hit and another 10 things don't. And that's okay because I'm going to try again tomorrow, and I'm going to keep just getting feedback and implementing that feedback as a flashlight to where do I go next? What does that next step forward look like for me? So that's long answer, but how I started to take ownership, and now how that continues every single day.
It's good. It's good, man. Um, yeah, there's so much freedom just found in that, like that being able to just say, I don't have it together. Like I don't even like I don't know what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure it out. And I think, I mean, even just as a whole, I think people connect with that so much more. Because I think when you see people who are walking around acting like they have it all together and seeming like they have it all together, like on the surface, you might think, they might fool you, but you can kind of always sense there's something like a little deeper that's like something's off, like something's not right here. Um, and then versus the person who is vulnerable and willing to admit and to say, like, hey, look, I don't have it all together. I don't have all the answers. I'm just showing up, giving my best, and putting my best self out there. Um, I think there's like a much greater ability to connect with people in that way versus the other way. you're almost isolating yourself because you're trying to put yourself like on a pedestal and trying to put yourself like above other people.
Mm.
And so you're literally like you're hurting yourself through doing that. Um,
Yeah,
but
and that takes so much unwiring for athletes in particular, but for everyone, I think can relate to that. Um, but in that setting in particular, like I didn't want people that I raced against to know exactly how I thought and what I was thinking, because I wanted to try to learn and pick up on that from them and use that to my advantage, right? Like I specifically remember different races in my life where I would I would like intentionally go out faster if I was racing someone that I've raced in the past. And I knew, like from the scouting report, research, or just past experiences, that if I got out a certain distance ahead of them, I kind of stole all hope from them. And I could literally, Goggins talks about taking souls a lot. Like I saw that in certain races of my life, which was honestly a really cool feeling. Um, but what I realized is, take that outside of the swimming world or out of the athlete world, and that's not a way to live life. Like, I don't want
right.
to sit here and take your soul. Like, I want to sit in here and have a conversation and
Right.
be really transparent and say, look, Jake, and whoever's listening to this, like, here's my experience, here's my cards. Ask me whatever you would like about them, and I will tell you to the best of my ability how I got here. And in hopes that maybe you can relate and maybe you can take something from my experience and go create a new experience for you, especially if you're not happy where you're currently at.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the reality is, if you try to walk around, acting like you know everything, at some point, sooner or later, you're gonna get humbled.
Yeah.
You're gonna get. Um, so for me, like my athletic experience is kind of unconventional. I played football only my senior year of high school. So I switched schools my senior year to a private school, and because of that, I was like able to just walk onto the football team. It's a very small school. And so, but I was like, you know what? I'm switching schools anyways. I want to try something new. And I've kind of always thought it'd be cool to play football. I don't know much about it. Up until then, for the past like 5 years previous, I'd been doing actually competitive shotgun shooting, which surprises a lot of people. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'd been doing before. So very different. But I was like, you know what? I kind of want to just play like a conventional sport. I feel like football would be fun. And so I did it. And inside, I was scared to death. Like I was terrified. But I'd been training all summer with a trainer. And then I showed up that first day of practice at 5:30 a.m. or whatever time it was. And I was like in my like out like my outer appearance was like, yeah, I got this. Like I'm gonna, whatever. I'm gonna destroy this. I'm gonna be like, starting whatever. And yeah, I got my butt kicked. I had that whole season. I mean, I had very little playing time. Um, I was essentially a tackling dummy, and yeah, it was a tough experience. I within the first few days wanted to quit, but my parents would not let me. They said, "You committed to this. You're sticking it out." And at the time, I probably hated them for it, but now looking back, I'm beyond grateful that they made me do that because even though that was a really hard time, it made me so much stronger, mentally, physically, and it just it taught me so much. I mean, what everything that I learned through football taught me so much. I mean, and our team went on to win state championship, and so even though I may not have had very much playing time, and even in that game, I had probably about 2 minutes of playing time. Um, it taught me what it's like to be like a part of a team and to be a supporting role, and that you don't always have to be the main character, and you don't always have to be the best. But what's more important is that you leave everything out there on the field, and that you leave everything. Uh, you don't leave. You know what I mean? But basically, yeah, I think if I were to go back now, I think I would, and have the opportunity again. I think I would have done a lot better because I think at the time I didn't put in the quite the effort that I would now. But I think through doing that, it taught me like what true work ethic is and what it truly means to work hard at something and to, I mean, really at its core, like that probably was one of the initial sparks of like Into the Uncomfortable, like at its core, is that really taught me what it's like to get uncomfortable and to do things that sometimes suck. And I mean, we would be out there. It was, the middle of December. It was like 30 degrees outside. We went through a couple weeks where we did like a late night practice and you'd be tired. It was the end of the day. You'd had school all day and it was dark and it was windy and cold and it sucked. And anytime you got hit, it hurt so bad. um, but I don't know, just like looking back, I'm able to see how much stronger that made me. And especially even reading your book, like it's been reminding me of like, um, particularly Joe Rinaldi's story in the book was just reminding me of just like all those times out there and just the camaraderie of a team and just all the lessons that I've been able to bring with me today. Um, and yeah, I don't even know how I got on this whole story, but basically, yeah, I mean it. Oh yeah, I was talking about how life will humble you, but um, yeah, there's just so much I learned through that experience, and there's so much that can be said through just the power of sports, and it's more than just a game. Um, but I guess for you, what was you said a little bit, but what was like your biggest lesson that you learned through sports that you carry into your life today, or
Mm,
top few, or whatever?
it's a great question, man. And on a side note, Joe's piece in there, he's a phenomenal writer. He's like
He's incredible,
great,
incredible.
great chapter. I'm trying not to play favorites to the different chapters in there, but
Right.
okay. Um,
Fair enough.
I think the biggest thing for me and one of the biggest like relievers is it took me. I mean, we said a little bit about my swim journey. It wasn't until my freshman year of college or freshman year of high school that I even like really started to get good. Sophomore year was when I qualified for junior nationals at the first time. That meant like college actually became a reality of possibly scholarship and swimming at that level. But we're talking 10 plus years of early morning workouts going. I mean, for me, it started in sixth or seventh grade where there was a 4:45 a.m. practice. And it was super cool. Love my dad for this. He wanted to get his swim in for it too. And I admire a lot about him. Like he really role modeled the importance of health, especially beyond just sport. And I learned that in that next chapter. But at the time I'm in sixth grade and my dad wants to go swim before I swim. And that meant we get to the pool at 4:05 in the morning and it was just me and my coach and my dad swimming laps. And I was doing that for years, and I was not great. I was the slowest of all my friends still, and wasn't placing at meets and anything. So the biggest lesson that all of that took for me and that I take with me now is it's gonna be taking some time for whatever that next chapter is, whatever that next thing is in my life. It's gonna take some time to work and click, but just stick with it. Stay consistent with it. Like I know the processes that I need to go through to be successful. And I'm starting to see some return on investment. I'm starting to see some things starting to cascade and snowball. And it will eventually probably look like it was an overnight success. But what started off as me with a microphone in my apartment outside of DC has now turned into this, and this will now turn into I don't even know. And I'm so excited that I don't know because I'm just excited to be a beginner each day. I'm excited to show up and learn. I went to swim practice every single day with the intention to work hard, but also with the intention to pick up something new, to try a new skill, to try and just push myself a little bit harder than I did the day before, or maybe take it a little bit easier than the day before, depending on what the intention of that practice was. So it's taught me a ton, but I'd say that's the biggest piece is that I will be a beginner again. And to your point of life will humble you, the sooner that people can embrace the fact that that's part of the process, it's okay to struggle, and struggle is when you develop the best skills, then you're setting yourself up for a more like flow filled struggle. And
Right.
that's when that hard
Right.
work becomes easy. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm after every single day now.
Yeah. Have you read the book Atomic Habits?
I have.
Okay, so you know how he talks in the book about how like your identity and like assuming like if you want to start building habits, you kind of like assume the identity of that kind of person you want to be.
Yep.
So just finished reading that book a couple weeks ago, and then now through reading your book, I've kind of come to incorporate the two. And so what I mean by that is like just through adopting this like athletic mindset of just through every aspect of my life. So if I'm going to hit a workout, I ask myself like, what would an athlete do? Like, I'm not just here working out. Like, I want to, I don't play any sports or anything. I don't do anything like that, but I still want to be an athlete, so to speak. So, what would an athlete do? And then I've been, and even just adopting that same kind of mindset into my work, and just like, how can I adopt that same level of drive and ambition and just hard work that like an athlete would have out on the field or in the pool or wherever they're, you know, playing courses or whatever. How can I adopt that same level of focus and drive in my work sitting here at my desk?
Hmm.
How can I show up in the same way? Because, when you played sports, if you missed practice or if you were late to practice, you paid for it. There was, you
Yep.
usually paid for it dearly. um, and so I don't know. Then we get older and we lose that same level of consequence. And but how can we in our work? How can we keep that same discipline of like So, anyways, I've just been trying to kind of adopt that more. But just speaking on the athletic mindset, how do we? I mean, that's kind of how I've been doing it. But how do you think that we carry that over from whatever sport we played or are currently playing? How do we carry that over into our life and throughout the rest of our lives? How do we carry that mindset over?
It's through intention. You said it there in a lot of different ways, but it's setting that intention. Um, Intention helps improve your focus, and focus is what drives flow, which is that in the game, in the zone, on fire feeling where you can't do any wrong. You see the next play happening before it happens, or in your work, you start to make connections, and like the creativity just flows out of you. And you're like, I don't even know how I thought of that, but I did, and it worked beautifully. That's something that we can intentionally step into, but it starts with intention. It starts with setting the space before you jump into it. The difference between an athlete and a non-athlete, even in a workout setting post athletics, is the athlete's way more likely to go in there with some sort of game plan, with some sort of general structure and idea of what they're going to accomplish and set an intention for that session. Whereas most people off the street, they walk in, they go to the gym, or they think they have to work out today, and they're like, I don't even know where to start. Maybe I'll like do 10 minutes on this stairmaster, and then maybe I'll go do some bicep curls in the squat rack, and then like I don't know, I'll go do this. Like they're all over the place, and it's funny because we all know those people in our certain gyms, right? We're like,
Well,
we
totally.
see you. This is your call out. Um, but that's the difference, right? They're haphazardly going through probably not just their workout, but also through their life. And if you want to bring that mindset, that thing that separates and that so many people, kids look up to, that adults look up to in athletes, in these role models, they're just laser like focused because of their intentionality. And we can do the same thing. And all it takes is taking literally 15, 30 seconds to get clear on an intention before you pop into anything. Like before hopping on here with you, it was, I asked myself, what's my intention here? How do I want to show up? And how do I want to be when I talk with Jake today? And I made sure that I had enough room in my schedule that I took a minute before the last task that I was wrapping up and popping on here. So I wasn't just haphazardly going in. I could just say, look, I'm here. I'm ready to rock. I'm focused. I'm not worried about the cars driving by outside my window that probably everyone has heard because we're not using the real mic right now.
I haven't noticed, so.
Okay, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. We're good. But that's the difference. Setting that intention, just asking yourself, how do you want to be in this moment allows you to step into that. And then it allows you to express that. And that runs your to do list, like whatever it is that you're doing on a day to day basis.
Two things there. First, really actually connect with that because literally yesterday I've been working on some stuff on the side, just through all my media stuff and all that kind of stuff. And just some decisions I've been like trying to make with it and the direction I want to go. And I've been just moving forward, but it's been in the back of my mind, like, is this right? Like, am I doing the right thing? Like just not addressing it though, just like, yeah, it's fine. I just keep moving forward. And so then finally I realized, and I was like, yesterday I literally just blocked off like a couple hours of my time, set a timer, and I just brainstormed and I just went through it. I wrote it all down and I got it all out there. And through doing that, I was literally able to, get more clarity on it and now know my direction going forward. And so, yeah, just taking that time to be intentional and to get clear on your direction, where you're going. And the second thing was just how you've touched on it a little bit, but how like working out and just like it impacts the whole rest of your life, and how like the people who show up haphazardly are doing that likely in the rest of their lives as well. And I've noticed so much in my life, and I kind of like realized this when you said it, um, but I've noticed that the times when I've struggled the most, like I haven't been working out, I haven't been in the gym, I haven't been like pushing myself. And I always blamed it on, well, it's just because I'm struggling right now. Like I'm just going through it right now. Like that's why I'm not. But really it's like, what if it's the other way around? Like, and I guess that comes back to taking ownership of that. But just to segue that, you talk in a lot of your content about mental health and the importance of that. And I think especially as men, that's something that it's become a lot more accepted, but it still can be kind of a gray area. So what, I guess, what inspires you to start talking about mental health even in the first place?
It's a great question. Um, Without going to, this one's a little tricky. So without sharing, I don't want to share my experience in my in my family. Suicide is something that has history there, and it's impacted us in a lot of different ways. And it's been a challenge navigating that, and some people really close to me have attempted or have succeeded, unfortunately. And while I never really personally found myself to that extreme, I definitely have found myself in lower lows than what I thought I was in lower lows than what most people experience until I started to open up about my experience and share. This is like, is anyone else going through this? Like, anyone else cope with alcohol to deal with the, like, you hate your job and you're not happy with who you are and the things that are going on in your life? And then I was amazed by me just saying that, the amount of outpouring support and relatability and people just saying, yo, dude, me too. I thought I was the only one that was struggling with that. I think that's that's really why it is such an important piece of, it will always be an important piece of my platform and something that I speak openly on, is because I don't want people to feel like their experience isn't valid. I don't want them to feel that they are alone, but truly give them the tools to be proactive about that mental health. You said it a little bit earlier that you found when when your life's not going great, you put like working out to the side, and it was kind of like this light bulb moment of like, well, maybe we should like double down on the working out thing. It's the same thing with our mental health, right? Like when things aren't going right in our life, we have a negativity bias built into our brain. You can thank our amygdala for that. It's just a really cool evolutionary thing that allows us to, you know, get out of danger, but it also is always saying, "Hey, Jake, you're not good at this. You're not good at that. By the way, you need to get this figured out." And it can be exhausting. So we try to quiet down that voice. And it's easy to hear that chatter and then just stay in that negative circle where the hard work then becomes is noticing these things and choosing to go the opposite direction. So knowing that you're busy and life is happening really, really fast, but doubling down on there's six non-negotiables for peak performance, but really six non-negotiables for just living a healthy, optimal lifestyle. And what that is sleep is the first one, like non-negotiable, 7, 8 hours. Anything less than that, you're not getting enough. We're hydrating often and getting enough water throughout the day. We're making sure our brain actually has enough fluid there to properly think and function. Movement, and I use movement intentionally instead of working out because movement is much more freedom for a lot of people. It could be going for a walk, it could be going just getting your body moving in some shape or way. It doesn't matter. It's good for you. Social interaction is a huge piece. Feeling like you have quality social support around you is an even more of a bonus there. Then we have gratitude practice and we have a mindfulness practice. If we can do those six things every single day, I guarantee you you're going to have a better quality of life. And I guarantee you that's what I call and refer to as proactive mental health. And I get it's really, really hard. It's actually probably the last thing that you want to do when you're feeling shitty is to go and say, I need to go do these six things. This guy doesn't get it, but I do get it. And I promise you, you going through those six things is going to put you in a much better place. And sometimes a lot of what I had to learn too was this difference between working out versus working in. Working out was something I was always great at doing, but I also realized working out could be a like masking mechanism where I would just suppress my feeling and emotion and go over here. And while that's good, and occasionally I can do that and it helps, and I can like compartmentalize something to get something done, to meet a deadline, what I found is the more I resist things, the more they're going to persist in my life. So I need to set aside some time and space to go back and really play with that emotion, with that feeling, whatever it may be. And I'm, again, you can probably pick up on it. I'm very intentional with the words that I'm choosing here. I choose to use the word play when I'm talking about I'm playing with this feeling of anger or this feeling of really sad, like I'm down in the dumps today. I'm going to play with that emotion. I'm going to journal on it. I'm going to talk with a friend about it. I'm going to do what I need to do to allow that feeling to flow through me and move on to that next thing. So that's a little bit all over, but that's why mental health is a huge piece for my platform. Yes, it is very challenging, I think, but we're starting to break that stigma. And I've always been someone that I want to lead by example. I'd rather my actions speak louder than my words. So that's why you see a lot of that in my content is I want to share that with people to show them what's possible so that then they can go live their life and hopefully be a little bit inspired to do more of that the way wherever they may be.
Dude, that was so good. So much just good value in there, man. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's a vulnerable thing to talk about, something that I mean I struggle to talk about. And yeah, I think especially as men, it's hard for us to talk about it because you know we don't like talking about feelings or emotions or whatever. And you know we want to be tough, but I think there's so much power when we can get vulnerable and break that down. And so thank you for doing that, for sharing that.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Thank you for
yeah, man,
allowing the space for it. I mean,
of course.
I look at last year I hosted an event here in LA, and it was a mental health social experiment, and the whole premise was just bring people together, have them answer the question, what's something that they're struggling with or have struggled with in the past, and you can share at whatever level you feel comfortable sharing with a group. And I went really deep with my share, and it was around mental health and that suicide component, and something that I was really struggling to comprehend and wrap my head around with at that time in particular. And I broke down crying in front of a room of 20 strangers that I brought together, and it was the best thing. It was the most powerful experience because it allowed me to release a lot of what I was dealing with, and it set this space for everyone else in there to truly be honest with themselves because they saw that I was willing to do the same. And that's that's why I share that. I don't share that to say, "Hey, look at me. This is what I'm doing." I share that to say, "This is what good can come of wherever you are." It doesn't have to be a formal event. It could just be the next time you call your family or a friend and you're catching up. Having those kind of conversations goes a long way. You really never know what can happen.
Yeah. No, totally. Hey, you got to get it out there. Got to air it out. Feel it to heal it, as they say. Um, but man, that's powerful. Thank you. Appreciate you. I know you got to get rolling. Real quick, since we've been referencing your book the whole time, but time kind of caught up to us here. Just, I guess, real quick, just touch on your book, Forever Athlete. Touch on the book a little bit and maybe what inspired it and that sort of thing,
Yeah,
if you got
man.
time.
So the book itself, it's really interestingly written. I facilitated this co-author project, meaning that as a result of at that time, I was about 2 years into, or about a year and a half into podcasting, and I noticed I was having these great conversations with other athletes, and a lot of this through line of people were struggling in that next chapter, that next season of their life after sport. And I said, well, what if we put together a collection of stories into a book project? And we shared from multiple points of view. And we did it in a way where it wasn't because I've read books like a Tim Ferriss and blanking on the other ones, but there's that style has been done before that I've seen where it's basically like Tim writes for those guys, like based off of the interview, and then he transcribes it. I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to discredit anyone's experience. I want them to have their voice in this project. So let's explore that. So I brought together me and 17 other amazing human beings in this world that happen to also be athletes. And we explored this concept of what does it mean to be your true self, your true identity, and how can someone find that for themselves. And what I talk about in there is you'll see, you'll read all 18 chapters and you'll realize there's no one right way to do it. But what you will notice is you got 18 new examples that you can pick and choose, and you can leave whatever you don't want to make up who Jake is or make up whoever you are. So that's the power of it. And that was kind of what inspired it. I just wanted to amplify the voices and get this project out into the world. So it's on all the platforms. It's on Amazon at
It'll be
Forever
linked in the show
Athlete.
notes as well.
Yeah, connect your with your
Yeah.
true identity daily, and then it's at my website is forever-athlete.com, and that's got everything else that we're up to too.
All right. I'll link all that in the show notes so people can connect with you. But dude, yeah, the book, it's incredible. Like I said, I'm in the process of reading it right now. Um, and yeah, it's just so cool getting to read like from these people's perspective. And you just feel such a connection with them. And like I said, it was cool getting to like, it's been reminding me so much of just all the lessons I learned and even lessons that I didn't even totally realize, maybe that I learned that are like coming up now. And I'm like, oh, I do this in my life now. And that came from my experience playing football or,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so I don't know. It's just cool. I love this. Like, I don't think I've ever seen another book like this in this kind of style. And I don't know. I just think it's really cool. So like I said, all of this will be in the show notes. Got to pick this book up and go support Cory. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on here and just talking. I could keep going for forever, but I know you gotta bounce. So, do you have any final words or anything like that before we head out here?
No, man, Jake, again, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the space. I love what you're doing with this message, and can't wait to link up with you in Austin and actually be a local this time compared to the last
Right,
time
let's do
I was there.
it. Yes, sir. So real quick, one last question that I always ask everybody. So I'm big about giving like actionable steps and taking action, which I know you are too. So how, after this podcast, whether it's today or within the next week, how do you plan to go push yourself into the uncomfortable
Ooh,
and get uncomfortable?
great question. I've started to actually ask for support more, which sounds kind of like contradictory to a lot of what we talked about. But meaning I've had some small successes in this journey around the book in particular, where we've gotten the book into one or two universities at this point, and it's very uncomfortable for me to ask that person or people that it's impacted to like share it and put it into, or like put me in touch with that next person to keep this momentum going. Because I don't know. I don't know what that is. It's something that I'm working through, but that's going to be my to do. But really, my to be is to let's step into that uncomfortableness of asking for some support in just getting this in the right hands, the people that need it. Because I know it is such a powerful resource. I'm doing myself a disservice, but I'm also doing everyone out there that could benefit from this book a disservice by not asking. So that's going to be my step, my actual item.
Let's go. It's awesome, man. Like I said, man, dude, you're awesome. Thank you again so much. Appreciate you big time. So go connect with Cory, go pick up his book. You owe it to yourself to read this book. It'll change your life. So anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Uncomfortable Podcast. Until next time, keep on diving. What's up, guys? Jake here again. Just wanted to thank you real quick for listening to this episode of the Uncomfortable Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I ask that you would please go leave us a rating or review wherever you're listening to this. Really helps us out, really helps us tell more people about the uncomfortable and to help more people live fulfilled lives. So if you could go take 2 seconds to go do that, that would mean the world. Now go take one actionable step towards your dreams today and to apply what you heard here on this episode. You got this. I'm rooting for you as always. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Uncomfortable Podcast. Catch you on the next one.
Take yourself out your comfort zone. If you want to be ordinary, you ain't even got to listen to me.
Comfort is overrated. We've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.